Live everywhere.
Daily Kos Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Waldman. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is, for all intents and purposes, today, Friday, November 24th, the day after Thanksgiving. It is, of course, not that time right now as I record this. It is, in fact, it's Thursday, Thanksgiving morning, and I just kind of couldn't sleep. I decided to get up with the rest of you haters and losers and see what was going on this morning. I think we've beaten Donald Trump to his rage tweeting punch. Maybe he will sleep in today. Maybe he'll hit the golf course. Not really sure what a guy like that does on Thanksgiving morning. Who cares? We'll try and leave him aside, at least for the morning, what he's doing right now. If something breaks while we're recording, well, we'll just break in and break down the fourth wall, I guess, and update you on what's new. But we have so many things to catch up with, and still, even though we have a full show that we could do, we did one yesterday for you, which you're listening to today, this morning. Maybe that's what you're listening to now. Wow, man, that's like a time warp situation. Anyway, point is, much to catch up on. Still not enough time to get to all of it. One of these days, I really should just record every story I've got and just weave them together as necessary into shows. I keep thinking that would be a great idea, but I never do it. Well, there's so much that's like that. Let's start. Today I just thought maybe we would continue with the Trump-Russia stuff and try and catch up on some of the other things. Yesterday ended up being about sort of satellite stories on the fringe of the Trump-Russia story that were important that we hadn't gotten to yet. Now, there's still some things really at the heart of Trump-Russia, including this piece written, on Friday, which would now, I guess, be last Friday, the 17th. Mark Sumner wrote a piece that appeared on the front page of Daily Kos that, I sort of felt like, hey, haven't we been saying something like that this whole time? Let's remind ourselves about it. The Trump-Russia story is a story about money laundering and real estate, full stop. You know that because you're a longtime listener to the show, but I just thought I would share Mark's take on it while the morning hubbub is going on behind me. No people involved in this morning's hubbub, just all the machinery. So a couple of whirs and clicks and hums to add to our morning cacophony. Let's get to Mark's story here, though. When the investigation into the Trump campaign brings up charges of money laundering and shady property deals, it may seem like a sideline. How could it? Not to you, not to me, but okay. It shouldn't, says Mark. No one expects Donald Trump to secretly have a shrine to Lenin in the basement of Trump Tower. Michael Flynn didn't offer to kidnap a cleric. Remember that? We didn't even get to that story yet. That's the Turkey angle on all this stuff. Didn't offer to kidnap a cleric because the man offended his religious views. Paul Manafort wasn't sending Putin plans to, quote, greatly benefit his government because he really, really wants to see democracy crushed, even though Manafort's track record says he might. The truth is simple. They are in it for the money. So when you see a story like this, and he's linking here to a Talking Points memo piece about the Panama resort, and we'll get to all of that. When you see a story like this, it's not a sideshow. It is the show. Here's the story he's referring to. It says here, a new report from a watchdog group, Global Witness, says that a Colombian money launderer, and what kind of money might he be laundering in Colombia? One wonders. A Colombian money launderer currently in U.S. custody, that's good, participated in the advanced sale of units in a Panama development bearing the president's name, the Trump Ocean Club. Trump has made $13.9 million from the Ocean Club, allegedly, in the last 3 years alone, according to NBC's own reporting on the matter. Mark continues here. This time it was a front for murderous drug runners in Colombia feeding dollars to Trump. But that's the point. Trump's connection to Russia isn't philosophical, it's financial. He'll take money from anyone, and he's not alone. Here, a link this time to a Bloomberg report that says the federal indictment of Paul Manafort, President Donald Trump's former campaign chairman, accuses him of laundering millions in foreign payments to pursue a quote, lavish lifestyle in the U.S., especially in the Hamptons, where he has a house. Mark picks up again. The reason that both Trump and Manafort have money flowing into their coffers is simple. After rules were changed, making other means of money laundering more difficult, there was still one huge loophole that was left wide open. We learned yesterday about the antique carpet loophole that was left wide open, but this is a different one. It is well known that real estate can be an effective way to launder money because many transactions involve opaque entities and clean large sums of money in a single transaction. The pipeline that people in Trump's circle have connected to oligarchs and autocrats flows with billions of dollars coming into the United States on a raft of real estate deals. So, word that Trump didn't just clear hundreds of millions from Russian mobsters. We also have word from a quoted article here. This time, oh, look at that. It's quoted here from the Daily Kos. Was Donald Trump bailed out of bankruptcy by Russian crime bosses? Did we ever read that one? I'm pretty sure we would have referred to it, or you'd have all the information anyway. That's another of Mark Sumner's pieces, this time from early January of 2017. Anyway, he quotes himself in this, and who can blame him? Word that Trump didn't just clear hundreds of millions from Russian mobsters. The money to build these projects, this is the quoted piece here, flowed almost entirely from Russian sources. In other words, after his business crashed, Trump was floated and made to appear to operate a successful business enterprise through the infusion of hundreds and millions of dollars in cash from dark Russian sources. But he also raked in cash from the cocaine and kidnapping kings of FARC. Isn't that great to know? Yes. David Murcia Guzman is the Colombian fraudster who just completed a 9-year sentence in the U.S. for money laundering that defrauded more than 200,000 people of $2 billion. Not each, it's all collective. You get it, according to this report. And here we're back at Talking Points memo now. A Brazilian real estate salesman named Alexandre Ventura Noriega, and everyone loves the Noriegas, confirmed to Global Witness and NBC that Guzman participated in the pre-sale of Ocean Club units. Yes, Trump Ocean Club, purchasing as many as 10 of them in the period when the developers were trying to raise money to complete the project. Mark says this should not surprise anyone, and it doesn't, not here, because the truth is that's what his business is about. Trump's real estate, quote, fortune isn't about creating landmarks, running hotels, or building homes. It's about laundering money on an industrial scale. Trump may not have deliberately set out to facilitate criminal activity in his business dealings, but as this Global Witness investigation shows, licensing his brand to the luxurious Trump Ocean Club International Hotel and Tower in Panama aligned Trump's financial interests with those of crooks looking to launder ill-gotten gains. And gee whiz, it happens a lot. Trump seems to have done little to nothing to prevent this. Obviously not. That's what he was in it for. What is clear is that proceeds from Colombian cartels' narcotics trafficking were laundered through the Trump Ocean Club, and that Donald Trump was one of the beneficiaries. That business may not deliberately, that business of may not deliberately, the quote, is both Trump's standard method of running his business and what he hopes will be his get-out-of-jail-free card when Robert Mueller inevitably comes calling. Trump doesn't so much actively make deals that are clearly money laundering. He just makes it possible for money laundering to occur, a lot of it on an industrial scale, so long as a substantial cut flows into his pockets. He has great hopes that when Mueller drops off a stack of indictments detailing the hundreds of millions of dollars worth of money laundering, I got to edit this on the fly, I guess, hundreds of millions of dollars of money laundering that Trump has conducted both inside and outside the U.S., Trump can hide behind his passivity and behind the blanket forgiveness uniquely provided under real estate laws. That's right here in the United States. Again, Mark quoting himself here, the laws regulating U.S. real estate deals are scant, experts say. Provisions against terrorism financing in the Patriot Act, passed in the aftermath of the September 11th attacks, obliged mortgage lenders to conduct know your customer research. But money launderers pay in cash. Sales, such as those of the Trump Soho apartments, for instance, have passed through this loophole, which was partly closed only this year. And, of course, the raised voice goes to the hint that the Trump Soho is back in the news currently, with the partners behind it getting ready to remove the Trump name from the building. That Trump's campaign team agreed to look into the Magnitsky Act isn't something they're doing for Russia. Not the country, that is, the country of Russia. But for Russians, yes. It's something that they're doing for themselves. They need to keep that pipeline open to make sure that the oligarchs banned from U.S. transactions under sanctions are free to insert their dollars right into Trump's bank account. Sure, the Russians helped Donald get elected. Sure, Trump's campaign contacted Russia over and over to coordinate on ways to attack Hillary Clinton and the best use of Russian trolls and ad dollars. Sure, Russia made it clear that the payoff for their help would come in the form of reduced sanctions. That's the sideshow. The real show, it's billions of dollars moving from oligarchs in Russia to banks in Cyprus, to real estate in New York and Florida and elsewhere. Of course, Putin wants that flow open. Trump wants his cut. The White House is a tool to make that happen. Meanwhile, Paul Manafort paid $5 million for repairs and upgrades that were ticketed at about $1 million. That includes a $100,000 audio system, $650,000 worth of landscaping, and on, with much of the money going to a single mysterious contractor whose actual work seems to be minimal. This is according to another Bloomberg report here. What it doesn't explain or highlight are the stratospheric payments he made to home improvement companies when his renovation work was estimated at far less. Because even now, with everyone looking, the pipeline has to keep flowing. That's an interesting piece there, the Bloomberg bit. That's the end of Mark's piece there. Let me open up the Bloomberg story so we can talk about a little bit about what that one is. In light of the antique carpet story, this one is a little bit more interesting. This from Bloomberg Politics, the questionable math behind Manafort's extravagant home renovations. The former Trump campaign chief made huge payments to home improvement companies when his renovation work was estimated at far less. Oh, look, the rugs are in here. This by Polly Mawson's, Patrick Clark, and Michael Smith for Bloomberg. There were the Oriental rugs worth $934,000. I guess that's the $1 million in Oriental rugs. The 4 Range Rovers, the antiques, even $1.37 million in clothes. The federal indictment of Paul Manafort, President Donald Trump's former campaign chairman, accuses him of laundering millions in foreign payments to pursue a lavish lifestyle in the U.S., especially in the Hamptons, where he has a house. That's the bit we read earlier in Mark's piece. And I guess maybe it isn't as lavish as they say. It was worth considerably less. But what it doesn't explain or highlight are the stratospheric payments he made to home improvement companies when his renovation work was estimated at far less. Special counsel Robert Mueller, in his indictment, says that a Hamptons firm got $5.4 million in wire transfers from Cyprus over 71 payments. But building permits over the same period examined by Bloomberg show that renovations by Manafort's Hamptons contractor were estimated at $1.2 million. It's still a lot of money, but it ain't 5.4. That's less than a quarter of what was ultimately sent, an apparent discrepancy that could draw scrutiny from investigators. The indictment identifies the company as Vendor A, home improvement company in the Hamptons, New York, but doesn't specify what the work was for or where. So there may be another explanation for the huge gap between money transferred and spent. A Manafort spokesman, Jason Maloney, you remember him, declined to address this point, saying only that Manafort had entered a not guilty plea and looks forward to his trial. I'd like to be this guy's communication director. You just deny everything, deny that anything happened, deny that anything's happening next or now or ever, and then collect your paycheck. I mean, what could be easier? Public records raised sharp questions about how the money was spent. A company called SP&C Home Improvement is listed as the general contractor on renovation projects for both the Hamptons and a Brooklyn property owned by Manafort's family. The company's owner, Stephen Jacobson, he doesn't even sound Russian at all, who moved to Florida several years ago, rejected numerous attempts to seek his comment. Building permits in Southampton estimate that the cost of SP&C's renovations would come to $687,000. In Brooklyn, the work is estimated to cost $527,900, though it isn't clear whether SP&C or another contractor completed that project. Either way, the estimates fall more than $4 million short of the amount vendor A was paid. Manafort's payments to some other vendors are substantial too, even for a man who is said to favor $7,500 suits. Manafort paid one Hamptons landscaper $655,500 over 2.5 years. He wired $112,825 to an audio, video, and control system integration and installation company, also in the Hamptons, and he dropped $623,910, I guess that's pretty exact, on a New York antique dealer, according to the indictment. I'd red flag that one. No one answered the door at Manafort's house in the Hamptons. He's not paying anybody to be a butler, I guess. Nor at his house in Florida. On a recent visit to the Brooklyn brownstone, renovations were underway in the basement and upper floors. A project manager declined to answer questions. Manafort, 68, an international political consultant, was accused, along with his right-hand man Rick Gates, of lying to the United States authorities about their work in Ukraine, laundering millions of dollars, and hiding offshore accounts. Both pleaded not guilty on October 30th. Aside from Mueller's inquiry, the New York Attorney General and Manhattan District Attorney are investigating Manafort's real estate transactions. Can't be pardoned on those, I guess. And federal prosecutors, for which a pardon looms large, I guess, in New York have also been probing potential bank fraud involving loans on his Brooklyn brownstone from Chicago-based Federal Savings Bank, according to a source familiar with the matter. Federal Savings Bank's officials didn't respond to several messages to seek comment. The federal indictment provides some detail about Manafort's spending in the U.S., such as how much he paid various vendors, who are identified only by location and type. None of the vendors were charged or accused in wrongdoing, not yet anyway. Manafort didn't pay taxes on the income used to make the purchases, the indictment said. Well, as we learned earlier in another of the pieces quoted by Mark, it is well known that real estate can be an effective way to launder money because many transactions involve, of course, opaque entities and clean large sums of money in a single transaction. I guess there's lots to look at in smaller transactions, too, with regard to his antiques and his rugs and his lavish lifestyle. The piece does go on, but I think we get the flavor of what was being reported there, and that's probably good enough for our purposes here. Now, what about all these other crazy issues of money laundering and the like? Well, everybody was onto that, of course, last week as well. We're only playing catch-up. We'll take a look at Think Progress's approach to this big story. Casey Michael, writing this piece for Think Progress, Ivanka's signature real estate deals were disasters linked to drug cartels and money laundering. What? Oh, no. Poor Ivanka. How did this happen? Before her father became president, Ivanka Trump tied herself more closely to two of her father's international projects than any others. One in Panama was the current president's first international foray, a building, according to the developer, that Donald Trump wanted to be Ivanka's baby. The other, in Azerbaijan, that is some far-flung empire, was a project Ivanka herself claimed she, quote, oversaw, one for which, according to an Azeri lawyer involved with the project, the president's daughter, quote, personally approved everything. Neither project succeeded, at least from the Trump's point of view. Oh, didn't it, I would ask? The board of directors of Panama's Trump Ocean Club eventually fired Trump's management company, citing budget overruns and improper bonuses. No way, improper bonuses. Meanwhile, the development of Trump Tower Baku was so poorly managed, thanks to shoddy construction and missing payments, that the New Yorker dubbed the building Trump's worst deal. Both remain marked, I guess we would say, blots on the president's supposed business chops. Really? And on the record of his daughter, who remains a special advisor to the president. Yes, it does reveal them to be, on the surface, it reveals them to be bad business people. They're supposed to make great deals, and their deals collapse and really suck on the surface. But, of course, if they're siphoning all the money out of them and saying, oh, no, it's a failure, I only made $100 million and only helped launder millions more, well, is it a failure if it was never really their intention of staying in business to just sell apartments to nice people in Panama and Azerbaijan? A pair of recent in-depth investigations reveal the bungled buildings point to far more concerning missteps than mistimed bonuses or poor designs. The president and his daughter appear to have been, at best unwitting, and boy are they unwitting, accomplices to money laundering and grand corruption on a significant scale. That doesn't really sound as majestic as I thought. Significant scale. Grand scale, yes, but I already used grand. All right, fine. The project in Azerbaijan has been tied to allegations of money laundering from the Azeri dictatorship and those close to the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Darn it, Raatz, we're dealing with terrorists again. This stinks. Dag nabbit. In both instances, the project in Panama, I almost forgot, has been tied to allegations of money laundering from South American drug cartels. In both instances, the Trumps apparently ignored clear signs of the corruption and money laundering drenching Ivanka's pet projects. Trump's business approach, wrote anti-corruption group Global Witness in a recent report, remember them, has been to lease his name and for him and his family to drum up sales in some of the world's dirty money hotspots, in some instances aided, knowingly or unwittingly, by networks of money launderers. The result is that Trump's current wealth has depended in part on securing significant infusions of untraceable foreign funds. While neither the president nor his daughter appear willing to comment on their dealings in Panama or Azerbaijan, a series of reports over the past few months have helped highlight how Trump and his daughter missed even the most basic red flags when it came to these buildings. The president and his daughter's Panamanian construct, Trump Ocean Beach, was once described by Ivanka as her family's largest project in all of the Americas. In a report published last week, Global Witness details how the building, to which Trump leased his name, helped launder proceeds from Colombian cartels' narcotics trafficking. And as Global Witness found, Donald Trump himself was one of the beneficiaries of such laundering practices. Information available from a bond sales prospectus revealed that the Trump Organization would see revenue from every unit sold at Trump Ocean Club, even if Trump and Ivanka were somehow unaware of the building served as a spigot for laundering cartel cash. It would have been difficult to miss the signs. The Trump Ocean Club, set up during the years that Panama came into its own as an offshore haven, was being used for money laundering on a massive scale. There were several obvious signs that the Trump Ocean Club was laundering cash. One, many of the units were purchased in cash, or even purchased in cash, if you want to pronounce things correctly. It is an easy means, of course, of obscuring payments, according to the lawyer for a convicted fraudster, a criminal who acted as a key player in laundering drug money at Trump Ocean Club, per Global Witness. The cash that purchased the Trump Ocean Club units found its way to Panama via mules crossing the border from Colombia. Numerous units were purchased in bulk, a common practice behind money laundering, and not a common practice among regular populist types like you and me and Trump voters in blue-collar American bars across this country. Let's see, the third red flag here. Numerous units were purchased via anonymous, untraceable shell companies, just like you and me, Mr. and Mrs. Blue-Collar America. They're all shell companies, dozens of which contained Trump in their names, by the way. Not a really good shell, but he just can't stand not having his name on things. Anonymous shell companies, as real estate brokers from Seattle to New York to London can attest, remain one of the most popular means of laundering ill-gotten gains. Some purchases were even conducted via bearer shares, according to sources. It's like right out of, what was it, Die Hard, right? Bearer shares, or I guess we heard of them as bearer's bonds. Bearer shares in which the holder of a certain piece of paper is the literal holder of the related share. These are shares, not bonds. These things remain so notoriously linked to money laundering that they've been outlawed in jurisdictions like the Bahamas, the United Kingdom, and, as of 2013, after bulk sales at Trump Ocean Club, Panama. As with other assorted Trump properties, including those in South Florida, many of the clientele in Panama were among the wealthiest actors from Russia, a reality that may have piqued the interest of Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller. Some of the buyers, according to those interviewed by Global Witness, were connected to Russia's mafia underworld, a type of client familiar to Trump. But if these glaring signs weren't enough, a Reuters investigation also found that Alexandre Henrique Ventura Noriega, there's an extra name thrown in this time, the building's primary broker, admitted that he offered money laundering among his services. You just list that. Sure, I'm a money launderer. Hi. When I was in Panama, I regularly laundered money for more than a dozen companies, said Ventura Noriega, who was arrested in Panama a few years ago on charges of forgery and fraud, and thus the opportunity to say something like that to authorities. According to Reuters, Ventura Noriega worked closely with Ivanka on the Panamanian project, meeting with her at least 10 times. Ventura Noriega told the publication that Ivanka was ultimately responsible for all aspects of the Trump Ocean Club licensing deal for the Trump organization. The building, added Global Witness, came with Ivanka's personal touch, and it was only millions of dollars in the making. We'll be right back after this short break. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning, interrupting this little break to say thanks so much to all of you who are contributing supporters of Kagro in the Morning. Thousands of you are downloading the show each day, but fewer than 1 in 25 regular listeners are donating to help keep us on the air. For the money you'd spend on a single 3-minute iTunes song, we bring you 2 hours of great news and entertainment every day, 5 days a week. Patreon.com, Patreon.com makes it easy. You can find us there by searching KagroX or David Waldman or Kagro in the Morning or even Daily Coast Radio in their search box, and you'll be right where you need to be to make easy, recurring, monthly contributions to support our show. Once again, thanks so much for your support. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. How you doing? Happy day after Thanksgiving. We left off just before the break reading the Think Progress summation of what was going on in money laundering world and how that was coming to the fore in the Mueller investigation. It occurs to me that maybe we would have been better off reading the Reuters report, which is much longer, and I don't know how much overlap there is. Think Progress tends to summarize these things pretty well, and but sometimes they leave the exciting details out, or sometimes they're so matter-of-fact about things that some of the other reports are even more exciting to read. But let's see what was going on. We had just left off with one of the money launderers who was actually arrested in Panama, Ventura Noriega, his last name, going on at length about how personally involved Ivanka Trump really was in this project and how she had put her personal touch on it. There's a tweet embedded here from February 2011, Ivanka's tweet. Touring Trump Ocean Club, Panama. Construction is almost complete, and the hotel and residences look nothing short of stunning. I loved collaborating with architect Arias Serna Saravia and interior design firm Hirsch Bedner on the breathtaking design. I guess maybe it's Saravia, unless it looks like it probably should be Saravia, but maybe she didn't have an accent mark on her Twitter keyboard at the time. Anyway, there's also a video embedded in this, a Trump Ocean Club Panama opening July 2011 piece that's, I don't know what the source is here, but it's a marketing video made by the Trumps. And Ivanka has got a very different look in this thing. I guess she's undergone a transformation. Well, there was a long-standing transformation. It's been going on for years. And, of course, she may just be aging, and that's the change. But it's kind of striking now since we see her so frequently these days. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. It's the money laundering we're interested in. The president's daughter has remained mum publicly on the project, despite singing its praises in early days. Some people say it resembles a giant D, she said a few years ago, laughing. And I am not sure what that's supposed to mean, although honestly, if you say that on this radio program, it looked like a giant D. It means you're just saying a word that you can't say on commercial radio that begins with D, and it probably did look like a giant D. You look like a bunch of giant Ds right now, the whole family, as a matter of fact, and they're not even all the same D word. There's several that I could think of that apply here. Anyway, according to information available about these Ds, the president looked to profit handsomely from the building. There's only one way Donald Trump can profit, and that's handsomely, because look at my fantastic hair. At least something needs to be handsome in that family. Anyway, Trump stood to gain $75.4 million from the Trump Ocean Club by the fall of 2010, according to Global Witness, pointing out that the building was, quote, one of Trump's most lucrative licensing deals to date. Moreover, Global Witness added the Trumps likely continue to profit from the Trump Ocean Club, a likelihood the president and his daughter continue to avoid addressing, ignoring questions from multiple reporters about the Panama property. Now, moving on to the Azeri laundromat, as the piece here says. Now, I'm wondering here, maybe at this point it would be wise for us to jump over to the Reuters report on this, which I think is a little more thorough. And we'll take a look at that one here. And I love the title, of course. I grabbed it for that reason. Ivanka and the Fugitive from Panama. That does sound interesting, doesn't it? Where's the byline in this? They make these things now so web attractive with the big picture and everything. But you got to scroll all over the place to find out who wrote the thing. Where are we here? Oh, there we are. Ned Parker, Stephen Gray. It's a big story. Stephanie Eschenbacher, Roman Anin, Brad Brooks, and Christine Murray. Thank you, all of you, for putting this together. It's an exclusive to them. We were reading a digest of the exclusive report from Think Progress. Their exclusive, how an alleged fraudster in Panama working with Donald Trump's daughter helped make Trump's first international hotel venture a success. The broker was in business with a money launderer and two criminals from the former Soviet Union. Then he fled, as all good criminals will do. Although we have photos of him, my, what a sharp dresser Alexandra Ventura Noriega is. It's interesting. You know who's, I don't think, mentioned in all of this. And I was surprised in reading that this Trump, what did they call it again? Trump Ocean, I can't even remember. Anyway, the one in Panama, that one was their first international foray. I mean, didn't we read a long time ago, back when we were reading about the trafficking, the sex trafficking that everybody knew about? Remember that one with the Trump modeling agency? That the modeling impresarios with whom Trump involved himself, and I thought much earlier in his career, ended their careers in some cases selling condo units in a South American Trump-branded building, and I thought that had happened well before the one in Panama, unless it was the one in Panama, but I thought this happened down in Brazil. Anyway, so all of this is very interesting. Let's go into the main part of the report here, which is bylined Panama City and Toronto, which tells you something. Let's find out what exactly. In the spring of 2007, knew that was earlier, a succession of foreigners, many from Russia, arrived in Panama City Airport to be greeted by a chauffeur who whisked them off in a white Cadillac. Baby, white Cadillacs, with a Donald Trump logo on the side, of course. The limousine belonged to a business run by a Brazilian, there we are, former car salesman named Alexandre Ventura Noriega, who was offering the visitors a chance to invest in Trump's latest project, a 70-floor tower called the Trump Ocean Club International Hotel and Tower. It was the future U.S. president's first international hotel venture, a complex including residential apartments and a casino in a waterfront building shaped like a sail. I guess that's the giant D. Mr. Noriega was an outgoing and lively young man, remembered Justine Pasek, who was crowned Miss Universe, Miss Universe is involved in this, by Donald Trump in 2002, and was acting in 2007 as a spokesperson for Noriega's company, Holmes Real Estate Investment and Service. Everybody was so impressed with Holmes, as they seemed to be riding the top of the real estate boom at the time, she said. Time out once again to say, yes, Miss Universe is involved here. Yes, Miss Universe, like his modeling agency, was both a vertically integrated sex trafficking operation and had a legitimate face, too. Come on over here, baby. I'll make you Miss Universe and hook you up with a job that will allow you to clear hundreds of thousands of dollars for doing virtually nothing, since there's, in most cases, virtually nothing you're qualified to do. But who knows? Miss Justine Pasek may be as intelligent as she surely was beautiful at the time. I don't really know. I haven't looked her up and not relevant to the story. But once again, back to Reuters. Of those Noriega set out to impress, one of those was Ivanka, Trump's daughter. In an interview with Reuters, Noriega said he met and spoke with Ivanka many times when she was handling the Trump Organization's involvement in the Panama development. She would remember me, he said. Oh, we'll see about that. We'll see whether she remembers you when the prosecutors ask. Ivanka was so taken with his sales skills, Noriega said, that she helped him become a leading broker for the development, and he appeared in a video with her promoting the project. And she probably was impressed with his skills because he was a braggart, much like her father, and basically was promising, give me the deal and I'll make bazillions of dollars for you, no questions asked, and they kind of liked that idea. A Reuters investigation into the financing of the Trump Ocean Club, in conjunction with the American broadcaster NBC News, perhaps you've heard of them, found Noriega was responsible for between 1/3 and 1/2 of advanced sales for the project. But was he really? Well, let's find out. It also found he did business with a Colombian who was later convicted of money laundering and is now in detention in the United States. In detention. After school, young man. A Russian investor in the Trump project who was jailed in Israel in the 1990s for kidnapping and threats to kill, and a Ukrainian investor who was arrested for alleged people smuggling while working with Noriega and later convicted by a Kiev court. 3 years after getting involved, look how unfortunate this project has been. For such a tremendous success, it seems so sad that so many of its major brokers are going to jail for things as varied as fraud, money laundering, kidnapping charges, murder, or at least threatening to murder people smuggling, yada, yada. And really, does anybody really think these guys are guilty? Oh, only Panama, Colombia, Ukraine, Israel, the United States. Just a few friendly countries around the world. 3 years after getting involved in the Trump Ocean Club, Noriega was arrested by Panamanian authorities on charges of fraud and forgery, unrelated to the Trump project. I was going to say, that's pretty quick. Usually, for a Trump project, it usually takes 10 years. Released on $1.4 million in bail, he later fled the country. He left behind a trail of people who claim he cheated them. That is horrible, including over apartments at the Trump project, resulting in at least 4 criminal cases that 8 years later have still to be judged. Strange how that happens. Noriega, 43, denies the charges and told Reuters in an email, "I'm no angel, but not devil either," sparing with his words. Senor Noriega. Ivanka Trump declined to comment on her dealings with Noriega. I don't remember. No, I don't know him. A White House spokesman referred questions to the Trump Organization. Alan Garten, still alive and kicking, huh? The organization's chief legal officer said no one at the Trump Organization, including the Trump family, has any recollection of ever meeting or speaking with this individual. I mean, he just lies with such aplomb. I really enjoy it. No one remembers. Of course, the piece is illustrated throughout with photos of, as I mentioned, of Noriega here she is side by side with Ivanka. Here's one with Donald. I don't remember. I meet so many people. Oh, she would remember me. What? I have no idea who you are. What a surprise. Trump put his name to the development and stood to make up to $75 million from it, according to a bond prospectus from the project. Very often these things are full of lies, but they're lesser charges. We go directly at the money laundering instead. He did not exert management control over the construction and was under no direct legal obligation to conduct due diligence on other people involved. That's why he's in this business. Still, some legal experts say the episode raises questions about the steps Trump took to check the source of any income from there. Arthur Middlemiss, a former assistant district attorney in Manhattan, the DA in Manhattan, no great shakes, by the way, and a former head of J.P. Morgan's global anti-corruption program, probably not also a great background for anti-corruption, said that since Panama was perceived to be highly corrupt, anyone engaged in business there should conduct due diligence on others involved in their ventures. If they didn't, he said, there was a potential risk in U.S. law of being liable for turning a blind eye to wrongdoing. Enter Donald Trump. Oh, let me at it. Jimmy Gurule, or Gurule, I'm not sure how he would pronounce it. G-U Rule, essentially. G-U-R-U-L-E. A professor of law at the University of Notre Dame in Indiana, of course, and a former undersecretary for enforcement at the U.S. Treasury Department. How do you like that? He agreed. He also said any businessman should avoid working with anyone with potential links to criminality simply as a matter of good ethics. Well, that's pretty broad and obvious. Reuters could not determine what due diligence Trump carried out in relation to the Ocean Club project. That's because there was none, and you can't find evidence of nothing. The White House referred Reuters' questions about the Ocean Club development to the Trump Organization. Garten said the Trump Organization's role in the project was, at all times, limited to licensing its brand and providing management services. As the company was not the owner or developer, it has no involvement in the sale of any units at the property. It just got a cut of them. But other than that, we're not involved in them. It's the only involvement there is, of course, but okay. He said the Trump Organization never had any contractual relationship or significant dealings with Noriega, and that's just a flat lie. Everyone can see that. Oh, look, here's a picture of the crowning of Justine Pasek of Panama. She's Panamanian, as Miss Universe in September of 2002. Pasek later acted as spokesperson for the company that was doing the sales that we learned. That's all from the caption of the photo. And it is really just a magnificent ceremony that you can see here. It's Donald Trump putting a tiara on her head, and she is, she's dressed nicely, but no indication whatsoever of stagecraft or that she's wearing a gown or a sash of any kind. It's just sort of, she's got a jacket on and she's happy. Donald Trump just basically created the situation. I want to be able to put my hands on this woman. Let me put a crown on her head. I'm surprised that the Miss Universe, the token of her, what would you call it? The token of her office, I guess, is a tiara. That's borrowed, obviously, from the Miss America pageant and other pageants like it to make it look like a legitimate pageant. But I'm surprised he didn't say our Miss Universe is it's not a crown that she wears. It's a diamond-studded bustier, and I have to put it on the winning contestant. Anyway, he didn't think of that. He was looking to look legitimate on the outside. Anyway, where were we? Yes. Alan Garten denying any connection whatsoever to anything ever in Panama, no matter what. times infinity. 9 former business partners or employees of Noriega, interviewed by Reuters, accused him of cheating them and his clients. 2 of the 9 have taken legal action against Noriega. The cases have yet to be judged. When first approached by Reuters, Noriega declined to answer questions. Writing on October 4th, he said in an email, "Anything I would say could also damage a lot of important and powerful people. I am not sure I should do that." Later, Noriega agreed to meet. In a lengthy interview, he describes his contacts with the Trump family and his role in the Ocean Club projects. And he said he only learned after the Ocean Club project was almost complete that some of his partners and investors in the Trump project were criminals, including some with what he described as connections to the Russian mafia. What? No way. He said he had not knowingly laundered any illicit money through the Trump project, although he did say he had laundered cash later in other schemes for corrupt Panamanian officials. I didn't know I was doing that at the Trump building. I knew I was doing that at other buildings, but then I was selling units to the same people who were paying in cash in the same way. I knew they were corrupt over on that side of the street. I didn't know that they were still corrupt by the time they got over here. It was not his job to check the source of money that investors used to buy units in the Trump Ocean Club, Noriega said. "I didn't know the money was coming from anything illegal. As long as they were doing wire transfers and not cash, I wasn't worried about the source of it." Noriega said that no one asked him about the source of funds. "Nobody ever asked me. The banks didn't ask, the developers didn't ask, the Trump organization didn't ask. Nobody asked me. Who were the customers? Where did the money come from?" It is unclear how much, if any, laundered money went into the Trump project. Yeah, right. Global Witness, an anti-corruption watchdog, said in an independently produced report out today, that would be last week, that Panama in the 2000s presented particular challenges for property developers because of its then reputation for corruption. That's, of course, why there is a Trump Ocean Club in Panama and not elsewhere. But okay. The sources, ultimately, the ultimate sources of cash, that is, for other Trump real estate projects where Trump has licensed his name, have drawn scrutiny this year. In March, a Reuters review found that at least 63 individuals with Russian passports or addresses had bought $98.4 million worth of property in, remember this, 7 Trump-branded luxury towers in southern Florida. The Reuters boys are at it. The buyers included politically connected businessmen and people from the second and third tiers of Russian power. That's very Trumpian right there. Responding to that story, Garten, the Trump Organization's counsel, remember him? He lied to us a few minutes ago, said the scrutiny of Trump's business ties with Russia was misplaced and that the story was overblown. Mark Sumner doesn't think so. Donald Trump's involvement in the Ocean Club began in 2005 when local developer Roger Kafif, not the thief, but Kafif, local developer. We're talking about Panama, Panamanian, Latin American name Kafif, Khafif. Stroke the beard on that one. Roger Kafif traveled to Trump Tower in New York to pitch the idea of a Trump project in Panama, then rumored to be the world's hottest hotspot for money laundering. What a strange idea. Kafif said he told the American tycoon that Trump would need only to license his name and provide hotel management. This way of doing business freed Trump from the burden of taking a stake or making a personal guarantee or risking any money whatsoever. It's just a way for us to pay you with dirty money. Are you in? Yes, I'll take it. In an interview with Reuters, Kafif recalled that Trump wanted to use the Panama Project as a baby for his daughter, Ivanka, who had just joined the Trump Organization to gain experience in the property business, even though there would be no property involved. It's just I'm licensing my name and taking payments. The plan was for Newland International Properties Corp., where Kafif was president and which owned the development, to finance construction with a bond underwritten by Bear Stearns, the U.S. investment bank. That's high profile for the time. The bank, which collapsed in 2008, was acquired by J.P. Morgan, which declined to comment. To sell the bond, the developer needed to prove it could sell the apartments. This is where we get the first glimpse of how this whole thing worked out for Trump? Why were people just paying him millions of dollars to do nothing? The answer is right here, okay? They're developing the thing. They floated a bond to finance construction. Bear Stearns underwrote the bond, then went out of business in the real estate-driven crash, by the way. But they floated the bond, and of course, on the developer side, they need to be able to prove they can sell apartments in order to get that loan. This was where Noriega came in. The Brazilian had arrived in Panama in the mid-2000s from Spain, where he had worked as a car salesman. Yeah, that's basically exactly what you need. You got to sell those units. Two things are needed in order to sell units in an otherwise nobody, nothing, nowhere building. One, the Trump name can probably work for that. Everybody had seen his television show and knew that he was American money. And that was all that was really necessary. That was very attractive to the Russians and good cover for everybody else, right? So you needed a name, a reason to buy in this building versus that building. You can launder your money in any building, but you want to launder it in the Trump building. Why? One reason I would speculate, by the way, is that just like the antique rug story, and the renovation story for Manafort, the units in a building like that, real estate is, I think, uniquely rigged for this kind of thing. There's no intrinsic, obvious, and stable value. The building, the asset, just like the antiques, they're worth whatever you say you paid for them, basically, which makes it really great for money laundering. And with the Trump name on a building, there's an added premium. That is, everyone can believe that Donald Trump would, for his own, greed and vanity, charge you 2, 3, 4, 5 times even as much as anybody else in almost the exact same location, and say you're paying for the luxury and the name. And, taxing authorities are basically forced to believe it. So a apartment that might otherwise sell for $1 million in a nearby building can be sold to you for $3, $4, $5 million because Trump. And taxing authorities have little to no interest in even trying to figure out whether that's possible. And then, throw the Trump name monkey wrench into the picture, and they're like, you know what? I don't know what people would pay for that. And it warns them off. It just throws them off the scent, even though it should be the obvious scent of corruption. Anyway, the other thing you need, of course, is unscrupulous salespeople. And where do you find them? I guess car salesmen. Why Spanish car salesmen? I don't know. But, of course, most of the transactions, it's in Panama, likely to be going on in Spanish. So, and hey, they speak Spanish in Spain, even though he's Brazilian, where they don't speak Spanish. But I guess they know Spanish. All right. Well, anyway, they needed an unscrupulous salesperson, and they got one. He had already, in fact, had a brush with the law. He's like pre-criminalized, he comes to us. So we don't even have to be the ones to corrupt him. This is great. In September 2005, in an official notice posted on the internet, so you know it's real, the Spanish Economy Ministry said it had opened proceedings to fine Noriega for an alleged serious violation of the country's money laundering laws. It's money laundering in cars. That's a little bit harder, I think. They have a manufacturer's suggested retail price, though maybe not in Spain. I don't know. The proceedings were terminated about 9 months after officials could not determine Noriega's whereabouts. The ministry declined to comment. Noriega said it was a trivial incident caused by him taking too much of his own cash through an airport, as populists are wont to do, of course. Oh, you know what? By the way, I just realized I've been saying his name is Noriega, and maybe it's because it's happening in Panama. It's not. It's Nogueira. 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 It looks like Noriega, and I think the Panama thing threw me. I'm sorry, fraudster that you are. I was being paid by Russian mobsters to say your name was Noriega. As I was going to say, it is odd that he's operating at this time in Panama. Noriega was gone, but that he'd operate under that name. That's like a red flag, you would think. But Panamanians can read, and they know his name is Nogueira. Once in Panama, Nogueira became renowned for his friendships with politicians, his love of Aston Martin sports cars — he was a car dealer after all — and expensive watches, because Those things are studly and get you laid. And as one former associate recalled, for never wearing the same shoes, no matter how expensive, for more than 3 months. Which, by the way, people don't know because they were tracking him. People know it because he would tell people that, I'm sure. Why? Because, again, sex cult. And the shoe thing you wouldn't necessarily, I don't know. It's not, they're not in it for the shoe sex. It's just, that's a studly thing to do. So whatever. I don't know. Anyway, he needed money to maintain his lifestyle. He said he first got involved with the Trump Ocean Club project at an early sales meeting in 2006 in Panama, arranged by Kafif, whom he knew already. Ivanka Trump and other real estate brokers were there, he said. He remembered listening as a minimum price of $120,000 for condominiums was discussed. Nogueira said he stood up and said the price was at the level charged in ordinary developments. Here it is Trump selling. You have to give value to that name. Make it $220,000. He said Ivanka replied, "Can you sell it?" Nogueira said he asked for a week to prove himself, and within a week he managed to collect deposits on over 100 apartments. Astonishing. And after that, Kafif made him a leading broker, working on a 5% commission of gross sales, he said. Asked about Nogueira's account of this meeting, Kafif said that most of what he said was true. Kafif said he remembered Nogueira meeting Ivanka a couple of times. That's weird. She doesn't remember it. Nogueira said that in the months that followed, he discussed promotion and sales with Ivanka in Panama, Miami, and New York. He said he also joined a group that traveled with Ivanka on a private chartered jet to look at a potential site for another Trump project in Cartagena, Colombia. What an interesting location. While Donald Trump was not the owner of the Panama project, the Trump organization participated in many details down to choosing the furniture and fittings, said Nogueira. Day to day, the project was assigned to Ivanka, he said, adding, "I spoke to her a lot of times. He also met Donald Jr. and Eric Trump. Ivanka Trump did not respond to requests for comment about Nogueira. Garton, remember him, the Trump Organization's counsel, described contact between Nogueira and the Trumps as meaningless. He said such meetings and events may have been memorable for Nogueira, but for Ivanka and the rest of the Trump family, it would have been just one of literally hundreds of public appearances they were asked to make that year. Ivanka and Trump's sons appeared in public at launch events for the tower, made promotional videos for the project, and managed the Trump involvement. That's hard-working populists, eh? We're going to take another short break, this time just a minute for the top of the hour. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio as we wind our music down for our 1-minute break. We were reading just before we went off on this break from the Reuters report, and it is a rather lengthy one, but I do feel like this needs to be on the background, especially as the money laundering charges, I think, take on a more prominent role in the Mueller investigation. But we were just reading basically all of the Trump denials now of knowing this fabulous salesperson who sold 100 units of the Trump Ocean, whatever the hell it is, international hotel and club and casino and yada yada in Panama. Sold 100 units in 1 week. Give me a week to prove myself. I can sell them at double the price you're asking. He sold 100 units at double the price they were asking. Can't remember that guy. Don't know anything about him. Nogueira said that one of the videos that they made promoting the building was actually commissioned by him. Ivanka helped arrange access to Trump Tower in New York for some sequences. In this video we made, I was talking and she was talking. When the Spanish-language TV channel Univision, or Univision, I guess I could say, in an article published in 2011, first noted Nogueira's role in the Trump project, Eric Trump responded that Nogueira had been an unaffiliated salesman. I looked, and I've never heard the name, nor does it appear in our database. What I found out was Nogueira owns a real estate agency in Panama that sells apartments in our building as a third party. he told the channel, except you get a cut of everything he sells. But hey, other than that, we don't know him. Asked this month about Eric Trump's statement in response to the Univision report, the Trump Organization said the company had never had any ties to Noriega or any awareness of him. They are amazing. How does he do it, Alan Garten? One wonders. Despite being a third party, Nogueira and his partners played a major part in the Trump project's success, the very first international foray, and he played such a major part in it, but we don't know who he is. According to interviews with former key staff at Holmes, developers, and investors, and lawyers, and an analysis of Panama corporate records and other documents. Holmes, that's Kafif's company, accounted for up to half of the 666 apartment sales, are you kidding me, in advance of the bond prospectus. People involved in the project told Reuters. Eleonora Mikhailov, it's M-I-C-H, so you think Mikhailov, Mikhailov, Eleonora Mikhailov, a Russian who settled in Canada, I guess that's where we'll get to Toronto in the story, was Noriega's international sales director. She recalled that, it's not Noriega, it's Nogueira. She recalled that Nogueira handled the sale of a third of the building, about 200 apartments. Another Holmes sales agent, Jenny Levy, a relative by marriage of the developer, Kafif, said she alone sold 30 apartments. We sold half the building, baby. Holmes sold half, Levy said in a phone interview. Baby, interesting. Nogueira said that he and his agents across the world sold between 350 to 400 apartments and hotel units. Kafif, president and co-owner of the developer, Newland, said he was unsure of the exact number, but Nogueira had probably sold up to 300 units. Everybody was lining up to work with him. During those days, he was the hottest real estate agency in town. Holmes found a ready market in, what do you think? Russia. Russians like to show off, said Kafif. Wow, I didn't know that. Who went on several sales trips to Moscow. For them, Trump was the Bentley of real estate brands. That's true. I mean, they don't really know any better, and they do like flash, a lot of the mobster types anyway. And he really represented American excess for them, and they thought this was a great idea. Why was this building in Panama? I don't know. Why are Russians buying condos in Panama? I don't know. Panama, Florida, New York, wherever. They just can't get enough condominiums, these guys. Mikhailov said investors in the Ocean Club were asked to pay 10% up front for one of the apartments. She said the average price was about $350,000. Buyers had to pay a total of 30% within a year, according to the bond prospectus, and Holmes organized the investment by setting up Panamanian companies for customers to enter pre-sales agreements with Kafif's company, Newland. So if you wanted to buy it, and you wanted to buy it through an LLC so that no one could tell who was buying it, they would even set up that company for you. Full service. In 2006 and 2007, Panama corporate records show at least 131 holding companies with various combinations of the word Trump and Ocean in their name. For example, the Trump Ocean 1806 Investment Corporation were registered in Panama for pre-sales deals, mostly by the Holmes Group. So you see what's going on here? You organize Trump Ocean 1806 Investment Corporation. What do you think that's for? It's for Unit 1806. On the 18th floor, I assume, of the Trump Ocean Club. We'll set that up for you, and you can put your Russian money into it, and no one's any the wiser. So great, full service. They do all of the laundering for you and make it especially easy. In many cases, the identity of the buyers was not clear. Nogueira and other Holmes staff involved said Panamanian law at the time imposed no obligation to verify the identity of the owners. And now I guess you begin to get some sense of why the Panama in the Panama Papers, because it was like the Wild West of money laundering. That's why. And Trump was right in the middle of it. And Trump was in the middle of it because he knew it was the Wild West of money laundering. That was the offer from Kafif. Come launder money, you'll make a mint. You don't have to do anything. You can put your dummy daughter in charge of this thing, and we'll just pay her lots of money, and she'll feel successful. Anyway, So in many cases, the identities of the buyers were not clear and no obligation under Panamanian law to find out. But listed as director of 4 Trump Ocean investment companies was Igor Anapolsky. I'm guessing that one. Anapolsky, I guess would be it. Who in 2007 was Holmes Real Estate's representative in Kiev. And why wouldn't there be a building representative in Kiev? I mean, after all, it's one freaking apartment building in Panama. There's 600 units, or 666 units, which is appalling. Okay, that's a lot of units. But there's more than 600 people, even more than 600 rich people in Panama. Or Panama and America. Or Panama and America and Brazil. Or Panama and America and Brazil and Canada. Or Panama, America, Brazil, Canada, United States. Did I never throw them in? And Russia. You're really going to need a rep in Ukraine? You're not, unless, of course, you're looking to sell units to people who really have no intention of occupying them or ever going there. Maybe necessarily they're just laundering money. I can't believe they have offices for this one freaking building. What other kind of operation has that? Anyway, it's fairly amazing. But okay, where were we with this? Anapolsky. Repping the guys in Kiev. Police records state he was arrested in March of that year for suspected people trafficking. What do you do for a living? Well, I'm a people trafficker, but when I'm not doing that, I sell units in a single discrete building in Panama, just for no particular reason. That's what a lot of us here in Kiev do. Released a year later on bail, he was rearrested in 2013, and in 2014, a Ukraine court handed Anapolsky a 5-year suspended jail sentence with 3 years probation for offenses including people smuggling and forgery unrelated to the Trump project. They're just extremely unlucky over there at the Trump project. This is like the 95th guy arrested somewhere for crimes unrelated to what he's supposed to be doing for a living. Interviewed in Kiev, Anapolsky blamed the case on police corruption and denied committing any crime. Maybe that's even true. I don't know. It was a Colombian businessman named David Murcia Guzman who triggered Nogueira's downfall. Murcia was, and it's funny that Murcia, because it looks like Murica. Murcia was indicted in November 2008 for money laundering, first in Colombia, then in the United States. Murcia was sentenced to 9 years in prison in the United States for conspiracy to launder drug money. After serving 6 years, he is expected to be deported to Colombia. I wonder if they're going to deport him or not. His attorney, Robert Abreu, said, what did he say? He said he was scheduled to be deported to Colombia. Colombia's government said Murcia will serve a 22-year prison term upon his return for offenses including money laundering. It's not looking good for him. Murcia did not get permission from U.S. authorities to respond to Reuters' question. I wonder why they didn't grant him any opportunity to speak with the newspapers. Within days of Murcia's indictment, by the way, it's good to be president. If you need to prevent people from doing things like that, that's weird. All my accomplices who are in jail don't have permission to talk to you. I don't necessarily think that he was involved in that, but it's interesting. Within days of Murcia's indictment, the spotlight turned to Nogueira. Roniel Ortiz, a former lawyer for both Nogueira and Murcia, said Nogueira had offered to wash Murcia's money by buying apartments on his behalf. Murcia could not take his money to a bank, Ortiz said, so Nogueira offered to see how he could help. I just want to be helpful to you. Ortiz said he did not know how much, if any, of Murcia's money was used in the Trump project. Nogueira and Murcia gave him $1 million to invest in Panamanian property. Here's $1 million. Get me some Panamanian property, which Nogueira used to pay the deposit on up to 10 Trump apartments, among other investments. Nogueira added, he was not a bad guy. I don't believe everything in those charges was true. Maybe, maybe not. But just notice what's going on here. I mean, it's all by itself, even without all of the rest of the criminality going on. If a guy says to you, I have $1 million and it's totally legitimate, and I want you to invest it for me in some property anywhere in Panama. And, of course, Nogueira says, I've got an idea. Out of all of Panama, I got one place that I think would be best, and it is the place where I get to keep 5% of the money no matter what happens. Plus, now there's brokerage fees, obviously, or whatever, and if you were going to invest money for somebody, you can probably expect to get paid. And he may have taken a cut just for handling the investment, but he was automatically entitled to a 5% cut because, of course, the one investment in all of Panama that he saw fit to put this guy's money in was the one where he was the sales manager. But okay, I mean, that's a conflict of interest all by itself, but why nitpick in the middle of all this money laundering, I guess? Anyway, in 2013, Nogueira, in conversations secretly recorded by a former business partner, said he had performed money laundering as a service, moving tens of millions of dollars, mainly through contacts in Miami and the Bahamas. More important than the money from real estate was being able to launder the drug money. There were much larger amounts involved, he said in the recording. When I was in Panama, I was regularly laundering money for more than a dozen companies. The recordings were heard by Reuters and authenticated by 5 people who knew Nogueira. Speaking to Reuters, Nogueira said he could not recall making such claims and denied laundering cash through the Trump project or handling drugs money. He said that later, after his real estate business had collapsed in 2009, how did that happen? He had been involved in handling cash from corrupt officials and politicians and was involved in corrupt schemes to sell Panamanian visas. The guy would sell anything. Cars, visas, apartments, etc. By the way, it does put a slightly different spin on the idea of the guy sold 100 apartments in a week. Well, he's selling them 10 at a time. You only have to do 10 transactions in a week. And that's a lot of transactions in a week. But if you know people who are looking to just, launder money, essentially, and they say things to you like, here's $1 million, do something with it. I guess if you know 10 such people, you can sell 100 apartments in a week. In the story of Panama's Trump Ocean Club, a high point for many of those involved was a warm, cloudless night early in 2007. We're getting now into the Russian connection. Oh, look, here's a picture of Mar-a-Lago in the middle of all this. How interesting is that? Let's see what we can get to about that. The setting for this cloudless night was, in fact, Mar-a-Lago, Trump's private club in Florida. He's there right now. Spilling out of Lamborghinis and Porsches into the welcoming carpet were the salespeople, clients, and potential clients whose acumen and cash would make it possible within a month to break ground on the project's building site in Panama City. Entertained with drinks, music, and jokes from American TV celebrity Regis Philbin. The guests got to meet and greet Trump and his children. Hooray! Donald Jr., Eric, and Ivanka. The event was organized to celebrate a successful sales campaign and to solicit more sales. I love success. Let's talk about it. The Trump organization did not comment about the party. Philbin told Reuters he couldn't recall the event because it was 10 years ago. I used to be with him, Trump, a lot, Philbin said. I was good friends with him. Nogueira said he was at the party and there met Donald Trump for the first and only time. I guess that explains the photo. He recalls, they introduced me and said, that's the guy selling Panama. And he thanked me. Thank you for your money. You're terrific. We just talked for 2 or 3 minutes. Besides Nogueira, the guests included people involved with the project as investors or salesmen, some of Russian or former Soviet Union origin. Among them, in the delegation from Homs and wearing a dark suit, was Alexander Altshul, born in Belarus. Russians like their brand names, Altshul told Reuters, explaining why investors were attracted to Trump. The moment was right. They were speculating. Many people hoped to get profits. Altshul, who holds Canadian citizenship, was listed on the Homes Company website in 2007 as a partner and an owner of the firm. He became involved in Homes after moving to Panama from Toronto and investing with family and friends in the Trump project, paying deposits on, again, 10 apartments and 1 hotel unit. Interesting. Even the hotel is sold piecemeal. This is pretty amazing because I was starting to think, really, there's only 666 units available. This guy says he sold 100 in a week. So like you're 1/6 sold. How is it that all these people have offices everywhere? And I sell in Kiev, and I'm in charge in Canada, and I do it in Moscow, and Russians love brand names, etc. And this is what we did. One guy sold 100 in a week. Like, this thing can't be a gravy train unless they're selling multiple units several times. I don't know how this goes on for so long. And by the way, imagine you got 666 units. A guy sells 100 of them before Ivanka even leaves town the first time, and nobody knows who he is when he visits Mar-a-Lago. That seems unlikely. Among his partners in that investment, according to Altschul and Panamanian corporate records, was a Muscovite. I love the old name for that. Muscovite named Arkady Vodovosov. Okay. A relative of Altschul's. In 1998, Vodovosov was sentenced to, 5 years in prison in Israel for kidnap and threats to kill and torture. Court records state. They don't say kidnapping, it just says for kidnap. They keep doing that. Extraordinarily bad luck this group has. Contacted by telephone, Vodovosov. Yeah, why is that such a tongue twister? I don't know. Said inquiries about his involvement with the Trump project were nonsense. We were in Panama for a very short time and got out of there a long time ago, he said, declining to answer further questions. And again, maybe it is an overnight thing for them because they're just selling 10 units or buying 10 units at a time. You wing in, you buy 10 units, you never use the stuff. You're just laundering money with it. You forget you even have it. Altschul attended the Mar-a-Lago party with another Holmes partner, Stanislaw Kavalenka. Anyway, Altschul, I guess, recalled people who were there. Kavalenka was also a Canadian emigre from the former Soviet Union. At different times, Altschul and Kavalenka each faced accusations of having connections to organized crime. What? No way. But the charges were dropped. In Altschul's case, police in Toronto filed charges in April of 2007. At the time, he was promoting the Trump Project. Right in the middle of his work at the Trump Project, he was accused of this. He was accused of involvement in a mortgage fraud scheme unrelated to the Panama Project that involved sending funds through Latvia. The criminal case was dropped a year later. In a statement, the Canadian government said it was duty-bound to withdraw charges where there is no reasonable prospect of conviction or if it is not in the public interest to proceed. It did not elaborate further on the case. Altschul said the decision showed he was innocent. In 2004, Canadian prosecutors had accused Kavalenka of pimping and kidnapping Russian prostitutes. Now that's interesting, right? You've piqued the interest of Donald Trump Modeling Incorporated. The case was dropped in 2005 after the alleged prostitutes who were the main witnesses did not show up in court. Wow, I wonder how that happened. Kavalenka's whereabouts are unknown. He did not respond to questions about his role in the Trump project sent to him through his family in Canada. I wonder why anyone would think he was involved with the mob. Nogueira and Altschul and Kavalenka, Nogueira said Altschul and Kavalenka had joined Holmes together, first as customers, later as partners. Would you like to buy an apartment here and launder some money? Yes, I would. In fact, I'd like to buy 10 of them. Wow, that's easy. Terrific. Here, I'll sell you 10. It is easy. As a matter of fact, you know what? I was thinking, would it be okay with you if I joined as a partner here? Because I know some other people who, does this not happen to those of you, those American populist, hardworking folks out there listening to the show? You go to buy a house. You scrape the money together to buy a house. You buy it from the real estate agent, and the real estate agent says, terrific, enjoy your new house. And you say, that really seemed easy for you. Would you mind if I became a partner in your real estate company and sold houses to other people? First of all, right here in America, they say, no, you can't do that. That's not the way it works. So what? You bought a house from me. What, now you're qualified to sell houses to somebody? I mean, you could go become a real estate broker, get a license, whatever. But that's your business, not mine. But here in Panama, you know what? I just laundered $10 million with my friend here. Hey, I got an idea. Now that you've laundered your $10 million, do you know anybody else who wants to launder money? Yes, sure. Good, bring them to me and I'll launder that money. No, I think not. I think I'll launder that money. Thank you very much. I want the finder's fee on that. Okay, well, if I still get my percentage, I'll let you do that. I guess that makes it a lot easier to understand how you buy an apartment at a building and then all of a sudden you're, hey, I'm selling all the apartments in this building. Maybe multiple times. Okay, sure. Anyway, Altshul told Nogueira that he had some difficulties kidnapping prostitutes, but they were solved and it wasn't my problem, Nogueira said. Nogueira also said that after he read of Kovalenka's Toronto case on Google, he becomes aware. Kovalenka told him, I was running some girls. That's how I made money. But I was cleared. Moore says he didn't do it. What do you want me to do? Hey, he was cleared. Okay, in the months after the Mar-a-Lago party, the prospects for everyone involved in the Trump Ocean Club looked rosy, I should say so. In the midst of a global property boom and a successful pitch, sales had exceeded all expectations. A bond prospectus was issued in November of 2007, enabling the raising of construction funds. By the end of June of that year, the prospectus declared the project had pre-sold approximately 64% of the building's condominium and commercial units, guaranteeing receipts on completion of the project of at least $278.7 million. Trump later said in a promotional video ahead of the 2011 opening that the project sold like hotcakes. But not all the money collected in the pre-sales campaign would go on to fund the project. 9 former business partners or employees of Nogueira, interviewed by Reuters, alleged that at the Ocean Club and other developments, Nogueira either failed to pass on all the deposits he collected to the project's developers, or sometimes sold the same apartment to more than one client. Who could have predicted? With the result that on completion of that project, some clients had no clear claim on a property. Boy, do that to enough Russian mobsters and they'll get angry. Exactly how many apartments were double sold is unknown. It had to be happening. It's impossible for it not to have been happening. Mikhailov said up to 10 out of 80 apartments in the Trump Tower that she had sold were also sold by Nogueira to others. Lawsuits in Panama and separate written complaints seen by Reuters record at least 6 instances of alleged fraud by Nogueira in the Trump project and in other Panama construction projects. 2 of the complaints seen by Reuters were in the Panama Papers, documents from the local law firm that were leaked to the international press during the past year. Ortiz, that's really just an excuse for me to not bother trying to say the names of these foreign publications or pronounce them. Ortiz, the former lawyer for Murcia and Nogueira, said of the Trump-branded project, when the building was completed and people arrived to seek out their apartments, they ran into each other. 2, 3 people who were fighting for the same apartment. It must have been a scene, man. Complaints against Nogueira, including allegations of fraud in Trump Ocean Club sales, resulted in 4 criminal cases against him in Panama and culminated in his arrest on fraud charges in May of 2009. Nogueira said the double sales occurred because of changes in the building specifications or clerical errors. He said he never deliberately sold an apartment twice. He said that not everyone lost money from their investments, and most who did lost out because of poor or unlucky investment decisions, like prostitution or trafficking. If you are looking to make easy money from speculation, then you have to accept there is a risk, he said, like going to jail for fraud. Released on bail for $1.4 million, he continued to live in Panama until 2012, when, despite a ban on leaving the country, he somehow managed to flee to his native country, Brazil, before moving on again. Karen Khan, a federal prosecutor based in Sao Paulo, said Nogueira is under a federal investigation for international money laundering, an inquiry triggered by several large bank transfers that arrived in his accounts from Panama. Declining to disclose where he's living now, Nogueira agreed to meet Reuters and NBC News on November 13th at a neutral location on condition it would not be revealed. Nogueira said an arrest warrant was outstanding against him in Panama. Of course, right now, I can be considered by the justice system to be a fugitive, but there are two sides to everything. Why doesn't Trump just cut through all the BS and red tape and arrest the man? He's right here, right? Well, okay. Well, but we agreed to keep his identity or the meeting a secret. Oh, who cares? First Amendment, nothing. Trump would cut through all the red tape if necessary, or would say he would anyway, if it was somebody he wanted arrested. It wasn't only alleged fraud that cost investors, by the way. After the global property crash of 2008, any chance of quick profit on the Trump Panama venture vanished. By the time the Trump Ocean Club project was complete in 2011, many investors had withdrawn and lost their deposits rather than stump up the 70% balance. Bondholders lost too after Kafif's company, Newland, defaulted on payments and the bond was restructured. There was one person who still profited, Donald Trump. Whatever the losses investors might suffer under Trump's licensing deal, detailed originally in the bond prospectus, the future U.S. president was guaranteed to receive payment. Court records from Newland's bankruptcy in 2013 indicate Trump agreed to reduce his fee, but that he still earned between $30 million and $50 million from lending his name to the project. How amazing is that? Building after building, project after project, it always works out for Donald. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio, winding down with our last segment. I think that's probably enough on the Panama situation, although there's plenty more out there on the money laundering that Trump has been up to. I just thought I would drop this one for you. The Independent in the UK had this headline the other day. I had to pick up on this one. Trump organization worth 1/10 of value previously reported. How do you like that? President's family business falls 37 places in ranking of largest privately held companies in New York. That's not the big deal, of course. The bigger deal is the weird estimation that they gave to things. The Trump organization in New York is reportedly worth 1/10 of the value previously claimed. Donald Trump's family business had previously ranked near the top of Crane's New York businesses list of largest privately held companies, but this year it has fallen from number 3 to number 40 after the president disclosed the organization's revenue to federal regulators. While the Trump organization claimed $9.5 billion in sales last year, Mr. Trump's public filings suggest revenues of less than 1/10 of that amount, between $600 million and $700 million. That's still lots of money, but not nearly what he claimed. The Crane's reporter who covered the story suggested to WNYC that he felt he had been misled following the revelation. Do you feel that way a little bit? It was obviously important to Donald to have his company at the top of the list, and I don't know why he felt that way, because he's an insane narcissist moron, but I don't know why you don't know why he doesn't know why he feels that way, or whatever the hell. I don't even know. I don't know anything. I don't even know what I don't know anymore. I don't know why he felt that way, but the numbers that he presented are just flagrantly untrue, Aaron Elstein said. It comes after a YouGov poll revealed the president's signature hotel chain sat near the bottom of customer perception rankings. I guess that broke the dam, I guess. Finally, everyone realized, wow, everything he does is actually a load of crap. I wonder if he's really worth what he says he's worth. That didn't come from when he testified that he made up his net worth based on how he was feeling that day. That didn't do it. Republicans, it turns out, and I guess in this YouGov poll, were found to hold low positive opinions about Trump hotels and resorts, while independents and Democrats held negative views, with Democrats having the lowest perceptions. Ethics experts have warned Mr. Trump's global financial holdings could clash with his public duties. That is a weird article throwing in like 5 different elements of stuff that doesn't really make much of a difference. Why they polled anybody on what Democrats and Republicans think of the hotels, I have no idea. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting and deserved some note. We may shift gears then from Trump-Russia to some other focus. Believe it or not, other things are going on, and I thought I might round things up and share with you some listener contributions as well. They were kind enough to send us some pre-recorded segments for the specific purpose of not having me and the rest of the gang working too hard during the Thanksgiving break, and I thank you. Why don't we begin then with Eric Posman's submission, a essay he entitles "What Happens Next." Take it away, Eric.
Good morning, Kagro. It's Eric from Orlando. It's the holiday season, or at least I hope it still is by the time you air this, and I've already offered you the not-so-wonderful life version if the election tilted the other way in 2016. Now I offer a little Ghost of Christmas Future, the sequel to Hillary Clinton's book, What Happened, which I call What Happens Next. It was stated by Martin Luther King Jr. and echoed by Barack Obama that the line of progress is never straight. It's clear that people are motivated by their outrage, and it's the blatant regressive policies of this administration that are forcing unprecedented progression. The arc of history may be correcting itself right in front of our eyes. Here's another thought exercise. If Hillary Clinton had been elected, would there have been a women's march, or a run for something, or a Me Too tidal wave, condemning sexual harassment and demanding accountability? Hillary Clinton's presidency would have been embattled on one front fighting Trumpism, and on another front as a continuation of establishment policies that still bent to moneyed interests and hawkish actions around the globe. Even many of those who supported her would be lukewarm, as opposed to activated, and would continue to accept the status quo, knowing that we elected the lesser of two evils. And as for Me Too, the hashtag, how can anyone view Hillary Clinton as a champion? She'd be seen as hypocritical, a complicit arm to the sins of her husband, which is of course the reason she can never go all in against Trump on his behavior, one of the many factors that cost her the election and put us all in this world of chaos. This is all prologue to where we are now, the infant stages of a changing world, equal parts outrage and hope. People who never participated in politics are now forced to. Young people, LGBTQ people, progressive women, and people of color are not just involved, but are winning local elections. Legislative houses around the country are going to start resembling the country itself, rather than the white male power structure that's always held the gavel. We're even about to elect a Democratic senator in Alabama, and he may win by a wide margin. Such a victory would expose the cult of evangelical fundamentalism that pervades all of America, but especially in the southern states. It's our own Sharia law, and it's crumbling. The next generations will certainly break ranks, hopefully finishing religion's chokehold on Republican politics. This sea change was propelled by Trump's Make America Great Again victory. Now we realize there was no time in our history when America was great, so long as those in power were steeped in misogyny and their policies cemented the oppression of so many. These events have forced the marginalized to claim their franchise, which means, of course, the race is now on. While our representative government is getting more feminine, younger, browner, and gayer, the old guard is preparing their last stand. Deregulation, reactionary judicial appointments, environmental rollbacks, and voter suppression are thrown at us like barrels in a game of Donkey Kong. And the new tax plan is the biggest headwind in this perfect storm of power grabs, as it would enrich the richest families and corporations to create a permanent aristocracy and ruling class. Maybe Trump will push the button on North Korea, creating an endless war on the Pacific Rim to go with our endless war in the Middle East. By the time our government truly represents all its citizens, will it already be too late? By the time Robert Mueller shuts down this administration, will it already be too late? The 2018 midterms are surely going to be a Democratic landslide. But as we make history, will any of it matter by then? Will our history already be written? That's our next civil war. So with that, happy holidays, David Waldman. Back to you.
Thanks, Eric. I think you're going to get a little bit of pushback on well, I don't know. I don't know if it was your intention to make it sound this way, but it begins to border on sounding like, I know a lot of Hillary fans in particular will be inclined to believe that you're placing some blame on her that might be undue. Of course, there are going to be many fans of Bernie Sanders and people who are not particularly fans of one or the other who are likely going to say, well, I don't know if I would hold her responsible for quite all of that. But on the other hand, it is true that she is likely somewhat constrained in her ability to push back against the history of sexual abuse and harassment that Donald Trump has displayed. But I don't know that she's certainly not going to be silent on it. She hasn't been to this point. And of course, it is true that had she not lost, we might not have been seeing some of the benefits that you list to that cloud, I guess. As we always say that every cloud has a silver lining. However, we are from time to time reminded that every silver lining comes with a cloud as well. I think a lot of us would trade having Hillary Clinton for president for some of the positive developments that have come in the form of silver lining along the way. I don't think you would disagree. And, interesting food for thought, and it's a holiday for food, so I guess the timing is good. I've got one other submission here, too, from David Raatz, who has a legal news report to add to the mix. Let's make sure that we get that, and I do like to make sure that we get our contributors' contributions played. And by the way, yeah, a nice a subtle dig at the beginning there, and it's okay. It's well-deserved, Eric. I do sometimes take my time in getting around to playing these things. But let's let David take it away with his legal news report, and then we'll wrap things up here with some additional stories and maybe a peek back at what we were looking at over at the beginning of the show. I feel like I gave short shrift to the Azerbaijani side of the money laundering, and want to make sure we didn't miss anything there. But for now, David, your turn. You're up. Thanks.
This is David Raatz with the Kagro in the Morning Legal News Report. Collection agencies' creative use of tools authorized under state law may be struck under a federal consumer protection statute. A Nevada collection agency used a state law mechanism to buy and extinguish a lawsuit brought against the firm, a bold gambit that violated federal law, according to a ruling by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals on November 17th. The case arose from Clark County Collection Service suing Patricia Arellano in state court over a $371.89 medical bill and receiving a $793.39 default judgment that included costs, interest, and legal fees. Arellano responded by suing in federal court under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, alleging the collection agency engaged in deceptive practices, including by using a business name that could be readily confused with a government agency, and providing misleading information about court deadlines. The collection agency then obtained a writ of execution pursuant to state law, entitling it to take possession of Arellano's personal property to satisfy the judgment. The action gave Clark County Collection Service the ability to buy the rights to the lawsuit against itself in an auction, which it did for $250. Taking ownership of the lawsuit provided the collection agency the apparent authority to end the case, except that doing so contravened the FDCPA, the Ninth Circuit held. Chief Judge Sidney R. Thomas's opinion on November 17th for a unanimous three-judge panel, quoting previous federal court opinions, noted, quote, "The Act's purpose is to protect vulnerable and unsophisticated debtors from abuse, harassment, and deceptive debt collection practices," end quote. The opinion further stated that, quote, "A debt collector cannot be allowed to use state law strategically to execute on a debtor's FDCPA claims against it under the guise of legitimate debt collection," end quote. On behalf of himself and Judges Stephen Reinhard and Edward R. Corman, Thomas wrote, quote, "Debt collectors cannot evade the restrictions of the Act by forcing a debtor's claims to be auctioned, acquiring the claims, and dismissing them. To allow otherwise would thwart enforcement of the FDCPA and undermine its purpose," end quote. Appellate specialist Deepak Gupta, formerly of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, represented Arellano before the Ninth Circuit. He persuaded the court the Nevada laws authorizing the collection agency's action conflicted with the FDCPA and therefore were preempted under the U.S. Constitution's Supremacy Clause. Oral arguments in the case were heard on June 5th in Pasadena, California, and can be viewed online. Ariano will now be able to pursue her case in federal court in Las Vegas, Nevada. This has been David Raatz with the Kagro in the Morning Legal News Report. You can follow me on Twitter, Daily Kos, or Medium.com, where this story first appeared, all under the username Raatz, R-A-A-T-Z.
Thanks, David, and thanks for the link to Medium.com. I'm definitely going to have to sit down and digest this one separately. I appreciate your having sent this to us and helping us out with our Thanksgiving show, though unwittingly the case, but I appreciate it, as always. All the rest of you who are interested in doing similar contributions to the show, please do take advantage of the fact that we can do this here. Sit down with your smartphone or any recording device, any articles that you think we've missed or just something you think would be interesting for the show, something that you've written, some analysis that you've made. It doesn't even necessarily have to have a link. You can certainly just espouse some interesting views as well. And email them to us. Just send us the file, kagrox@gmail.com, and we'll see if we can't make room for it here on the show at some point. It's always welcome. Give me a little bit of a break and give everyone else a little bit of a break, too. Hear a different voice once and now and again, and we appreciate it and encourage you to do the same. So, shifting back to a topic I covered earlier in the show, I just wanted to make sure that I didn't give the Azerbaijani angle on the Trump buildings short shrift, because I had a feeling, after I skipped it, I had a feeling this might come back to bite us. This could turn up rather soon, and I'd like you to be prepared. So I'm going to go back to the Think Progress piece and read you the part of it entitled The Azeri Laundromat, and make sure that that's on the record for us. While the Trump's involvement in Panama netted them a fine profit, their work in Azerbaijan didn't reach nearly the same level of revenue. As an in-depth look from the New York Times' Adam Davidson earlier this year found, the Trump Tower Baku project attempted to capitalize on the country's oil boom, which coincided with the country's slide into kleptocracy. The project was effectively taken over by Ivanka and began floundering almost as quickly. That's not good news for her. But once again, just sort of part of the pattern of, oh, look, there's a giant glut of cash with an oil boom and a slide into kleptocracy. Let's go and take advantage of that. Not only was Ivanka the most senior Trump Organization official attached to the project, but, as she said, she also oversaw the building's construction nearly from the get-go. At the beginning, Ivanka wasn't shy about pushing the project to her international audience. On her website, Ivanka claimed that the new Trump Tower will join a wave of modern architecture in the city and will make for an exciting addition to the Trump Organization's expanding portfolio. Elsewhere, on her Instagram, Ivanka lavished praise on the building's host city, saying the building would open in 2015. But then things started to go wrong. The building's location, for some reason, saw the tower placed in one of the city's lesser developed neighborhoods rather than at the heart of Baku. I'm sure cheaper land, I guess. The Trumps also opted to work with close relatives of Azerbaijan's then transportation minister, gee, I wonder why, Zia Mammadov, an oligarch described by U.S. diplomats as notoriously corrupt even for Azerbaijan. The red flags for the project there, a country that remains a stalwart of international kleptocracy, was impossible to miss. As an assistant dean at George Washington University Law School told Davidson, the entire Baku deal is a giant red flag. The direct involvement of foreign government officials and their relatives in Azerbaijan with ties to the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Corruption warning signs are rarely more obvious. But I guess it didn't work. According to Davidson's research, the construction of the building, which may well have been used to launder funds from those tied to Iran's National Revolutionary Guard, put the Trumps in possible violation of the U.S.'s Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. The FCPA, originally passed in 1977, remains one of the U.S.'s primary tools in combating foreign corruption, prohibiting American individuals and companies from bribing foreign officials. Indeed, the FCPA was, as Southern Illinois University law professor Mike Kohler wrote a few years ago, the first law in the world governing domestic business conduct with foreign government officials in a foreign market. For good measure, The Iranian government maintains an outsized track record of using shell companies, especially American shell companies, to hide its financing, including, in one notable instance, holding a New York skyscraper to draw revenue and skirt sanctions. Trump has made his opposition to the FCPA known in the past. His opposition, wow. Describing it at once as a horrible law. But even the president and his daughter alongside isn't immune from laws he may dislike, supposedly. The allegations of the Trump's dealings in Azerbaijan were significant enough that multiple senators in Washington called for an inquiry into the president's and his daughter's work in Baku. At some point earlier this year, Ivanka removed all information about the Azerbaijan project from her website, although it remains available via the Internet Archive, of course. A bunch of pictures here of her supervising construction, that is to say, having her photo taken wearing a hard hat, and even actually literally rolling up her sleeves to make it look like she was working on the thing, I suppose, or to hint that she was working. It's not supposed to really look like she was working, but I'm figuratively rolling up my sleeves by literally rolling up my sleeves. There's also a photo of the weird design of the building, which also, by the way, looks like a giant D and a backwards one this time. It actually resembles very much the Panama building. I haven't seen them side by side. We should take a look, though. I wonder if they stole the design. Anyway, the building, as anyone who has visited Baku recently will note, do you know anyone who has? Stands as a shell, stripped of its promise and Trump's name alike. The Trumps have distanced themselves from the projects once shepherded by Ivanka in both Panama and Azerbaijan, but not before both projects attracted allegations of massive money laundering, and not after the president and his daughter decided to ignore some of the clearest signs of grand corruption that exist. It remains unclear if the Trumps were aware of the direct sources of cartel-linked funds in Panama, or how gleefully Azerbaijan's dictatorship or Iran's Revolutionary Guard viewed the Trump's Baku project. As Global Witness wrote, this narrative of plausible deniability reoccurs across Trump's projects. Again and again and again. But as the FCPA makes clear, even a willful blindness isn't a sufficient defense against allegations of international bribery and money laundering. Neither in Ivanka's case is scrubbing your website of references to a building tied to kleptocrats' funds, nor ignoring the most glaring signs of drug cartel money laundering, plain for the rest of us to see, from voters to special prosecutors alike. And that's the sum total of how Think Progress summed it up. I thought an important addition to what we were looking at in a great summation. Did not want to leave Azerbaijani behind. Another story I'd like to shoehorn in there, you know, one of our catchphrases on the show. Every time Hope Hicks' name is mentioned, we all say, how does she do it? And I guess pretty soon we may have a chance to find out exactly how she does do it. There have been hints at this on Twitter in the past couple of weeks. I didn't pick up on it because I'm never really sure how much credence to give a Seth Abramson tweet storm. But now we've got some more stable reporting, not ephemeral stuff we can link back to. This time from David Korn, and he's usually on the right track. Mother Jones published his piece. Of course, note to Robert Mueller, Hope Hicks was part of the cover-up. Trump's aide told one of the biggest Russian whoppers of the campaign. Let's read about it before we exit for the day. Hope Hicks. How does she do it? Hope Hicks's time in the barrel may come soon, to borrow a phrase. Special counsel Robert Mueller is reportedly aiming to interview the White House communications director as part of the Trump-Russia investigation. When he and his team of lawyers do so, they presumably will be mindful that the 29-year-old Hicks told one of the biggest whoppers of the 2016 campaign, and that really takes some doing. 2 days after Donald Trump won the election, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said the Russian government had been in contact with the Trump campaign. There were contacts, he remarked. We are doing this and have been doing this during the election campaign. He noted that the Kremlin knew many of Trump's closest allies and was in touch with them. Obviously, we know most of the people from his entourage, he said. Those people have always been in the limelight in the United States and have occupied high-ranking positions. That's not exactly true, but okay. Ryabkov added that these contacts would continue. That really isn't very good for the case from Trump's perspective, I'm sure. This comment contradicted Trump's claim, of course, which he declared repeatedly throughout the campaign, that he had nothing to do with Russia. That was often how he responded when asked about Russia's cyber attacks against the Clinton campaign and other Democratic targets. Though the U.S. intelligence community, a month before the election, released an assessment stating that Russia was trying to subvert the presidential contest, Trump and his lieutenants constantly claimed there was no evidence of Moscow involvement. So, with a senior Russian official now stating that the Trump campaign had interacted with Russians, what was the Trump campaign to do? For Hicks, it was easy. How does she do it? She does it the easy way. Go with a blanket denial. It never happened, she said. There was no communication between the campaign and any foreign entity during the campaign. No communication. That was a wildly false statement. There were many communications with Russians and foreign entities, including WikiLeaks, which dumped the Democratic emails stolen by Russian intelligence. Trump's top advisors, Donald Trump Jr., believe it or not, Jared Kushner, believe it or not, and Paul Manafort, of course, met privately with a Russian emissary who they were told would provide them dirt on Hillary Clinton as part of a secret Russian government plan to help Trump. George Papadopoulos spent months in contact with Russians trying to arrange first a meeting between Trump and Putin and then a back-channel communication with Putin's office. Carter Page, another campaign foreign policy advisor, traveled to Moscow in July of 2016 to give a speech there, and while in the Russian capital, had contact with Russian Deputy Prime Minister Arkady Dvorkovich and Andrei Baranov, the head of investor relations at Rosneft, the state-owned oil company. And we've got more about them, too, but we can't fit it in today's show. And there's more. Then Senator Jeff Sessions, a top Trump campaign advisor, Kushner, Page, and J.D. Gordon, a foreign policy aide for the campaign, each met with Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak during the presidential race. And earlier this year, Kislyak told the Washington Post that he had conversations with retired General Michael Flynn, the notorious spy, Trump's top national security advisor during the campaign prior to Election Day. Kislyak declined to say what the two discussed. In July 2016, while Manafort was campaign manager, he offered to provide private briefings on the presidential race to Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska, a tycoon close to Putin. And in the fall of 2016, Trump Jr. exchanged private messages with WikiLeaks. So, Hicks was putting out false information, but it was a line consistent with the campaign's stonewall. Its top officials had been informed that the Kremlin was trying to covertly assist Trump, yet Trump and his aides constantly denied Putin was meddling in the election. And some of the contacts between Trump campaigners and Russians, particularly those of Papadopoulos and Page, were known by senior campaign officials. Yet the campaign revealed none of these interactions during the election when Russia's involvement was a major controversy. Is it possible Hicks was unaware of all this activity? How would she do it if that was the case? Did she know, or she did know, about Page's trip to Moscow? She commented on it publicly, and she was directly informed that Trump Jr. had been in contact with WikiLeaks. According to The Atlantic, after Trump Jr. received the first message from WikiLeaks, he emailed other senior campaign aides, including Kushner, Bannon, Kellyanne Conway, and Brad Parscale, to tell them that WikiLeaks had reached out to him. Kushner forwarded his email to Hicks. Hicks has been by Trump's side since 2014, when she went to work for the Trump Organization. Prior to that, she was at a New York public relations firm contracted by Ivanka Trump. She was with Trump when he decided to fire FBI Chief James Comey. She was on Air Force One when Trump reportedly got involved in drafting a misleading White House statement regarding the meeting between Trump Jr., Kushner, Manafort, and the Russian emissary. Mueller and his crew have much to talk about with Hicks, but she is not just any witness. She is part of the cover-up. How does she do it? Well, whatever she does, I guess she covers up afterwards. We'll just see about how well she covers it up and how well she withstands questioning by the special counsel. I don't know exactly when that's scheduled to occur, but we hope it's fairly soon, and that we get the beans spilled to us real quick, too. Yeah, I don't know about those. I guess I could include a link to the Seth Abramson tweet storm, and we can all take a look at it after the fact now, having seen David Korn's reporting, and decide how accurate we think Seth was being, because it's always good to evaluate those things along the way. Lots more that we didn't get to, and a big report in Vanity Fair that we'll probably discuss, I don't know. I hope we'll do it Monday. Maybe we can do it in the early part of next week. Related to this, exclusive, a report from Howard Blum, what Trump really told Kislyak after Comey was canned. Yeah, they're looking into it now, and we're getting slightly more detail about this thing, although I feel like we know the bulk of the story. This was, of course, when Trump felt compelled to spill the beans to Kislyak and also, who else was in that meeting? Sergei Lavrov, about the Israeli anti-ISIS operation, spilling the beans there about, some pretty serious undercover operations that may have handicapped our ability to fight ISIS in the future. Way to go, Dotard J. Trump. Anyway, thanks for listening. We appreciate your sticking with us for this pre-recorded episode. Hope you had a terrific Thanksgiving. We'll see you next week.
From Daily Kos Radio on netrootsradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
Do stay tuned, of course, for the rest of the programming day here on Netroots Radio. And this is a pretty good time to remind you that you can support our work. After all, we're working during the holidays to keep you happy over at patreon.com, patreon.com/KagroX. You can find a way you can support our work month to month with an ongoing contribution.